Hello, everyone. Let's discuss another novel research situation question. Let's read the question first. The question over here reads Lakha is planning to conduct a study to correlate helpfulness and intelligence. Pick on the important piece of information that you think you should know to be able to answer questions. Let's read it again. Lakha is planning to conduct a study to correlate helpfulness and intelligence. So, what I understand from here is this is a situation where Lakha is trying to conduct a correlational study. There are two variables over here, helpfulness and intelligence, where the first variable is helpfulness. I'll pick up red so that it looks clearer. And the second a variable is intelligence. Now, remember a correlational study. Let's revise correlations. You use a correlational study in situations where you are either where it practically isn't possible for you to manipulate variables, or it is not ethically permissible for you to manipulate variables, right? Typically these are the two situations, these are the two cases where you use a correlational study. Now, another thing that I'd want you to know for a correlational study, you have to have quantitative data. There has to be numerical data for a correlational study, right? Do not miss on this. If it's a correlational study, do not use qualitative data. Do not use qualitative data. Another piece of information that I'd want you to keep in mind. If it's a correlational study, never use the word independent variable and dependent variable. Alternatively, you might use the word covariable because we're talking about two variables, right? Or you might as well use the word measured variables for this, right? So Lakha is planning to conduct a study to correlate helpfulness and intelligence. She is going to ask the participants to use an online IQ test. So there's an online IQ test, okay, and is going to measure, like I said, is going to measure helpfulness in the laboratory. Now, measure helpfulness in a laboratory. So this is an artificial environment where the research is being conducted. It says environment. I'm sorry, it says laboratory. It does not say laboratory experiment. Do not get carried away. It does not say laboratory experiment. It says a laboratory situation, or in other words, it was an artificial environment where this was being conducted, this research was being conducted. So Lakha is planning to conduct a study to correlate helpfulness and intelligence. She's going to ask the participants to use an IQ test, online IQ test, and is going to measure helpfulness in the laboratory. Now, moving on to the first question, the question over here reads, suggest one way that Lakha could measure helpfulness for a correlation. The keyword, the command word over here is suggest, and it happens to be a 2-mark question. Suggest one way, not two, one. Suggest one way that Lakha could measure helpfulness for a correlation. Now, how do you get marks over here? I'll show you how you get marks. Let me just make this cleaner. 1 mark for suggestion that produces ordinal interval or ratio data that could be correlated. Number 2, you get the second mark for a detail, or in other words, you could, if you're using operationalization, that would be counted as a detail too. So for the ones who have forgotten on what operationalization is, operationalizing a variable, or in other words, defining a variable, or in other words, setting a criteria. So suggest one way that Lakha could measure helpfulness for her correlation. Now, suggest a way or come up with a proposal that would help Lakha be able to measure helpfulness for her correlational study. So the correlation is between helpfulness and intelligence, right? So you could simply write, she could use a questionnaire. You get a mark, single mark over here. How do you provide, how you gain the second mark? By providing detail. You could say with questions like, how likely would you be to assist an old person crossing the street on a scale of 0 to 10? This is how you get the second mark. Now, remember when I said use quantitative data, right? This very clearly, the second point over here that I've put a pointer on, this very clearly indicates that there's quantitative data being measured over here, right? So, or you could alternatively write down by setting up a situation with a stooge, or you could alternatively write down, so the participant was asked to help clear up a mess to see how much effort they make. Or you could use this together as a combination. Now, do whatever, or alternatively come up with a suggestion of your own as well, but make sure you're getting the first mark for suggesting something, the second by providing detail related to it. Taking this ahead, the second question over here again demands a suggestion or requires a suggestion. It's a 2-mark question again that says suggest one advantage of the measure of helpfulness that you gave in part A. Now this again has to do, this is connected to the previous question, to the previous answer that you provided. So this says, how do you get 2 marks over here? You get the first mark for suggesting an advantage and the second mark for providing a detail to it. So because if you talk about a questionnaire, questionnaires are standardized, they could be replicated easily, which leads to reliability being high. Question, if you are collecting data through a questionnaire, questionnaires are seen to be more objective relatively, especially when there's quantitative data being gathered. Example, in the questionnaire they could only give a number, so the response does not need to be interpreted. Now this is what this is connected to. I'll just use a color to help you. Now this is how you could get a 2 on 2 over here. Alternatively, there is another option, or you could come up with any other suggestion of your own as well. Now it says that these are only examples. There will be many other acceptable answers too. Now name the type of graph Lakha should use to plot her results. As you all should be aware by now that when we are talking about a correlational study, we use scatter graphs. So we use scatter graphs when it comes to correlational studies. Remember that. Taking this ahead, the next question, describe. So the question over here says, describe the pattern Lakha will see in her results if she finds, okay, I need to clear this up. Okay. Describe the pattern Lakha will see. Describe the pattern Lakha will see in her results if she finds a negative correlation between the two variables. Now, what is a negative correlation? In a negative correlation, usually when one variable goes up, the other comes down. In other words, if I may remind you of the situation that we had over here, Lakha was trying to find a correlation between helpfulness and intelligence. This is what I'm talking about, helpfulness and intelligence. So what we're saying is, when if someone is more helpful, they might be less intelligent, and for a negative correlation, or the other way around, if someone is more intelligent, they might be less helpful. I hope I didn't say that. Repeat the same thing. So a negative correlation is when one variable goes up, the other comes down, right? So you may use a drawing in your answer. You may use it on your discretion. You want to use it. You want to draw a uh, graph through which you want to get your marks. You could describe the results through that. And remember that the results have to be shown through a negative correlation. So, or alternatively, you could get your mark through this as well. 1 mark for as one variable goes up, the other one comes down. Now, over here, this says A or OWTTE. That means all words to that effect. You write this or anything of a similar nature, you get your mark. Acceptor diagram as well do not have to be labeled. Now, moving on to the next question. The next question over here is, a problem with the participants doing an online IQ test at home is that they may cheat. I repeat, a problem with the participants doing an online IQ test at home is that they may cheat. Explain the effect this could have on the negative correlation if only the less helpful participants cheated. So on a negative correlation, this is it, right? So if it's a negative correlation, of course, we are talking about a situation when, let's just say, people who are less intelligent, they, sorry, the people who are, okay, so the people who are more intelligent might be less helpful, or the other way around. If I say, if the people who are less intelligent, they might be more helpful, right? So understand, I wrote this because I wanted you to be clear about what a negative correlation would be like. Having a look, and this happens to be a 2-mark question, having a look at the possible answers, both marks for explaining the effect on correlation. So less helpful participants would score better than, wait, I would just, yeah. So less helpful participants would score better than they should. So would look like they have a higher IQ, right? Number 2, so the negative correlation would look steeper, or another example, because the most Okay, so that's a detail. Because the most unhelpful people, the most intelligent, would appear even more intelligent. Or it would be less valid because Laka would be measuring cheating and not IQ. So these could be possible examples or anything else as well. I hope this has helped. Thank you.